She had once been rescued from certain death by a U.S. Marine. Months later, the German Shepherd returned, this time seeking help of her own. When the Marine saw her standing in the snow, paws pressed together as if begging. What followed shocked everyone and left the world in tears. On patrol, a U.S. Marine trudged through the drifts, his flashlight sweeping over the frozen landscape. That was when he heard it, a faint, desperate whimper carried by the wind. Following the sound, he discovered her, a German Shepherd lying half-buried in snow, her ribs showing through her matted fur. She trembled violently, her eyes glazed with exhaustion, but still she lifted her head when he approached. With a low whine, she reached out a paw as though begging him not to leave. The Marine's chest tightened. Without hesitation, he wrapped her in his coat, lifting her into his arms despite the storm's fury. She was fragile, nearly weightless, but the spark of life still flickered in her. That night, by the warmth of a cabin fire, she survived, because he refused to let her die alone in the cold. From that moment, something unspoken passed between them. She had found her savior. He had found a loyal friend. Neither could have guessed that their paths, once crossed by chance, would be tied together again in a way that no one could imagine. Months passed since that stormy night, and life slowly returned to normal for the Marine. His days were filled with routine duties, long drives through the countryside, and the silence of a man who had seen too much. Yet, every so often, his thoughts drifted back to her, the German Shepherd he had saved. He often wondered what became of her after she recovered. He had released her where she belonged, believing her strength would carry her forward. Still, the memory of her eyes, pleading, trusting, haunted him. He told himself she was fine, that she had found safety, perhaps even a home. But deep down, he felt an emptiness, as if a chapter of his story was unfinished. Meanwhile, out in the wilderness, the Shepherd faced struggles unknown to him. Food was scarce, dangers constant, and survival relentless. She carried burdens the Marine could not imagine. Yet through every trial, one truth remained. She remembered the man who had once lifted her from the snow, the man who had shown her kindness when the world had been cold. And one day, she would find him again. That he drove slowly, his eyes scanning the silent trees that lined the mountain pass. It was an ordinary patrol, nothing more, until movement flickered in the corner of his vision. There, in the middle of the road, stood a German Shepherd. Her fur was dusted with snow, her body lean from hardship. But what froze him wasn't her condition, it was her posture. She wasn't running, wasn't wandering aimlessly. She was sitting upright, paws raised together against her chest, as if she were begging. The Marine's breath caught. He eased the vehicle to a stop, his hands tightening on the wheel. Through the windshield, his eyes locked with hers. Recognition struck like lightning. Those amber eyes, filled with desperation and memory, were the same ones he had seen months ago in the storm. For a long moment, neither moved. The blizzard whispered around them, the world holding its breath. Then, with a whimper, the Shepherd lowered her paws and barked once. Urgent, insistent. She wasn't just standing there by chance. She had found him again, and she needed his help. The Marine stepped out of his vehicle, boots sinking into the snow. "Hey, girl," he called softly, his breath clouding in the cold air. The Shepherd wagged her tail once, but didn't approach. Instead, she turned sharply, barking toward the forest before glancing back at him. Her message was clear. "Follow me." She trotted a few paces into the trees, then stopped, looking over her shoulder. Her ears perked, her eyes urgent. When he didn't move fast enough, she barked again, louder this time, pawing at the snow as though demanding he hurry. The Marine's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his flashlight and rifle, locking his vehicle behind him. Each step crunched in the snow as he followed her deeper into the woods. The Shepherd darted ahead, then circled back to make sure he stayed close. Whatever waited in the shadows wasn't ordinary. She hadn't come all this way for nothing. Something, or someone, needed him. The forest thickened, branches heavy with snow bending low as the Marine pushed through. Ahead, the Shepherd barked urgently, tail low, her pace quickening as if time itself was slipping away. Finally, she stopped. The Marine's light swept over a hollow beneath a fallen tree, and his breath caught. Nestled inside were tiny bundles of fur, puppies, shivering violently against the cold. Their whimpers pierced the silence, frail cries of life clinging to the edge. Beside them lay another dog, her body frail and motionless, as if the storm had claimed her strength too soon. The Marine dropped to his knees, his chest tightening at the sight. The shepherd pressed close, licking her pups, whining softly, then nudged his arm with her nose. She was begging him, not for herself, but for them. A lump rose in his throat. This was why she had come back. She remembered the man who had once saved her life. Now, she was asking him to save the lives of her children. Without hesitation, the Marine shrugged off his pack and pulled out a thick blanket. One by one, he gathered the tiny puppies, tucking them carefully into its folds. Their weak cries echoed against the trees, but at least now they were wrapped in warmth. The shepherd stayed close, licking each pup as he lifted them. The lifeless dog beside them stirred faintly, letting out a soft whimper. Relief surged through him. She was still alive, though barely. He slid his arms beneath her frail body, grunting at the weight combined with the puppies. His breath clouded in the icy air, but determination fueled every movement. The snowstorm pressed harder, the wind clawing at his face, but he pressed on. Step by step, he trudged through the drifts, the shepherd pacing at his side. She barked encouragement, her eyes locked on his, guiding him towards safety. Each step felt like a battle against nature itself. But turning back was never an option, not when so many lives depended on him. The Marine kicked open the cabin door, snow swirling in behind him as he carried the fragile bundle inside. Warmth from the fire spread quickly through the room, a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. He laid the puppies on a thick blanket near the hearth, their cries softening as heat touched their tiny bodies. Gently, he lowered the weakened dog beside them. She stirred faintly, breathing shallow, but the glow of the fire coaxed life back into her trembling frame. The loyal shepherd immediately curled around her pups, licking them one by one, her tail wagging weakly as relief shone in her eyes. The Marine poured water into a bowl, setting it close, then draped another blanket over the fragile family. For the first time since their desperate journey, the room was filled not with cries of fear, but with a fragile, hopeful silence. They were safe, and for the shepherd who had found him, gratitude shone brighter than words ever could. As dawn broke, golden light poured through the cabin windows. The puppies nestled closely, their tiny chests rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. The weakened mother slept soundly at last, her breathing steady. Beside her, the loyal shepherd lifted her head, eyes glistening as she watched the Marine. He knelt beside them, his rough hands trembling slightly as he stroked her fur. "You remembered me," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. The shepherd leaned forward, pressing her nose against his palm. It was a gesture of pure trust, a thank you without words. Tears filled his eyes. She had sought him out, not for herself, but for her family. And in that moment, he realized, loyalty never forgets.